Hey, WCW is back. So we here on the Wrestling War Zone know it's been a hot minute, but we are still here. Still going strong. It's a Monday Night Wars podcast retrospective series. I'm JT. That is Chad. If you are listening on our usual podcatcher apps, welcome back. And also, just letting you know, we are doing this on video as well over on YouTube. If you are watching on YouTube, we appreciate you checking us out there. And if you want to take a quick moment, just look right below. You can subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Like the video, helps us gain some traction and build some additional viewership, which we'd appreciate to keep us chugging along here. Chad, how you been?
I'm doing pretty good. Past the busy season at work, so ready to dive back in to the war zone.
So is this feel like you're just going from one job to the next?
Yeah, in some ways.
auditing.
Auditing 1996 WWF can feel like it's short times. But
there you go. We're almost done with 96. We're almost done with 96. So we're weeks away.
At least this time, if you say like 97, it's real good. I can get behind that.
I am really excited for 97. I think it's going to be a lot of fun because we know Nitro is great all through 97 for sure. And Raw, I'm curious to see when that turns. Like it's going to come at some point. When does it really start to pick up steam? And we know there's a lot of good stuff. So yeah. We'll dive into that. Of course, we are going to kick off the evening's festivities with Monday Night Raw from December 16th, 1996, where the Ice Palace in Tampa, which seems like a bigger building than we're used to, I think, for Raw. So I don't know if we're already starting to see a little uptick maybe and switching things up. We're out of kind of the smaller doldrum buildings we've been in here and there.
Maybe. We'll have to see. Sometimes they do that. Like they had the Key Arena one in Seattle. So,
right.
I don't know. We'll see if it stays consistent or if the next turn.
Interesting. They run the smaller shops or in your house, and then they go a little bit bigger for the Raw tapings.
Yeah,
that's been a little consistent. I mean, a couple of your houses had big buildings like Philly and Indianapolis, but
yeah. Let me look real quick and see if the Lightning were here or
they had to be. I mean, it's the Ice Palace, I would think.
Yeah,
had to be where they were playing because they started when.
I don't even know when their inaugural season was.
I think it was a couple years before this, I want to say, because
it says this was their 5th season, so maybe like 92, 93 or something like that, 91,
yeah,
92.
Because that's when all that stuff happened. Like the Nordiques moved, the Whalers moved, like Tampa came around, the Panthers came around, Phoenix, Avalanche, like Winnipeg left, like all that kind of happened in like that. It felt like a 5-year stretch from like Dallas, like Minnesota North Stars went to Dallas. I think that was like 92. So it all feels like between like 92 and 98, like all this stuff happened.
Yeah, they were in the Ice Palace, which the names go through so many different names now. I mean, that's still where they're at now.
Oh, it's crazy.
I'm sure it's been
cool name.
Renovated. Oh,
yeah.
It must have just opened because it says on the Amalie Arena, which is the Ice Palace, that Tampa Bay was there from 1996 to present.
Okay, so a pretty new building.
A couple months old, yeah.
All right, well, here we go. We're going to christen it with this awesome Raw taping. We cold open in the arena. Bret Hart stomps out to the ring to speak to Jim Ross. Ross kind of gives Vince a little shit about it, that he's getting the interview. Bret says to never ruin an apology with an excuse. There's no good reason he's not the world champion right now. Says some things have changed here. You can't tell your friends from your enemies what rules are, and there are none at all at this point. He says Shawn Michaels, Steve Austin, and Psycho Sid, and the rest that they have to understand. If there's no rules, he doesn't need them either. Michaels, that little prissy, gave Bret his word that he wouldn't interfere yesterday, but with Shawn's lack of integrity, Ed Cooley style, he set out from day one to cost him the belt because of sour grapes, and he can't handle that he's not as good as Bret. There's no rules, and he'll do anything and everything to get back on top. He announces his candidacy for the Royal Rumble, and he feels bad for the rest of the field because he's going to go outside to the booth, call things down the line, and mind his business, just like Shawn Michaels did. That was a pretty good promo. Despite the awkward starts, it felt like the kickoff of a new direction of lawlessness and some gray that's going to start creeping in. Also, some vibes of a foreshadowing of a heel turn, perhaps, and an extended feud with Shawn Michaels. And we keep talking about when the new era is going to start. And I think Survivor Series, you kind of saw hints of it with the rise and establishment of Steve Austin, Psycho Sid becoming world champion, Shawn turning off the white meat babyface, Bret with an attitude. And I think coming off It's Time now, we're going to really see that start to develop as we head toward the Rumble. You're starting to feel those vibes of like, okay, anything's going to kind of go now. and we're going to have this mishmash at the top of all these guys doing whatever it takes to be a world champion. So I like this as a start for Bret. I like him doing it. Of all the guys that could have done it, I think he was a good way. Like if Bret's going to this point, then everyone's going to go that way, right? Because Bret's the one throwing in the towel on rules and laws.
Yeah, I liked it too. I thought, I mean, it's one of those things where, like, with Bret's delivery, he brings up a lot of points that are accurate, but he still comes off as kind of whiny.
Yeah.
So depending on your perspective, it's very multifaceted. Where you can say like, "Oh, he's been a crybaby," or you can be like, "Well, I mean, he's speaking the truth. He's just convicted in what he thinks." So, like, if you're a fan of him, you can defend him. If you're not a fan of him, and I really think that's what they were going for. I mean, it turned out better that it was versus Steve Austin. I mean, as we talked about, I mean, it still seemed like they were kind of shooting for, all right, he has this like this first layer feud with Austin right now, and then we still want to build to Mania versus Shawn. And that's where we think there'll be a crowd split, but we got to do something to where that crowd will be split. So Shawn will have his fans too.
Yep.
So I think that's why they did the tone that they set for this. But it ends up working even much better than they could have imagined with what ends up happening.
Agreed. I mean, I think we start to see whether it was headed this way already or not, and I don't think it fully was, but you're starting to see that whininess and selfishness from Bret creep in, planting seeds for later. But I think it also, again, is like going to spread through everyone. The selfishness, and everyone's out for themselves, and there's no more good or bad. We're just all going for the goal, no matter, there's no sides to be on. We're all against each other. And that's going to be how the main event is developed and set up over the next couple months, really. It's just that it's all these guys just out for themselves.
Yeah, there's a very there's some very sports tone to the way he acts. It kind of reminded me of like Freddie Freeman when he went to the Dodgers, or also like if a senior comes back, like a junior comes back for his senior season, it's like, oh, we're gonna run it back. And then like they just don't reach the same level they did previously. I mean, that can build up a lot of resentment. So again, I thought this was very, very good. I mean, a very good start. Bret to me is still, I mean, Austin's getting there, but he really hasn't had many of these like signature promos. Like with what we've seen with him's been either unhinged, like backstage stuff or segments. So Bret's still by far the strongest. Like if you get in the ring and we need you to cut a promo and get your point across, like he's so much better than Shawn.
Yeah.
Better than Sid.
Yep.
So he's the best in the company. Mankind also hasn't been given opportunities to do that. So I mean, we know he could be a great promo guy too. Just hasn't happened yet much.
Right. And even a guy like Pillman hasn't had a lot of time. Like he's another one we know could do it if he needed to. But yeah, Bret's given the time, and he definitely delivers here for sure. All right, back to the ring we go for our first match, and it's the match we got robbed of last month due to injury, and that is Steve Austin taking on Vader in a tough man match. Ross ushers Bret to his chair. Vader stomps out with Cornette. Bret again vows not to get involved. He says he's going to show the same integrity, or he'll show the integrity Shawn didn't show it In Your House. Austin talks shit at Bret from the ring. Bret says he's just minding his business. We get a lockup and some heavy strikes, some tussling. Vince and Bret talk about Austin and the problems he's given the Hitman. Ross tells us that Vader will take on the Undertaker at the Royal Rumble. So big announcement of that match. I mean, we get a little bit of time before the Rumble, but we already have like one big undercard match named. Vader's unloading Austin with clubbing blows and a clothesline. The King trolls Bret as Austin can't get nothing going. Vader's just overpowering him. Austin gets a Thesz press in a wild flurry, knocks Vader to the floor, meets him off the apron in a great stretch of offense. After a break, they throw out hard, stiff punches. They're all over ringside. Vader throws Austin into the crowd. He follows in with a chair. Austin fires back. We go back to ringside. In the ring, Vader mows down Austin, sets him up for a Vader bomb, but Austin rolls away and hits a huge low blow, hammers on him. The crowd's into this as well. Vader dumps Austin outside. Bret goes up and over and takes Austin's knee out and hooks the sharpshooter to draw the DQ. Vader comes over and brawls with Bret. Austin tries to crawl away, but Bret comes back and hooks a sharpshooter again as Ross says Bret has gone crazy. And that ends the segment. It was a pretty fun brawl while it lasted. The heat and energy is something we don't always get on Raw. I thought it was good, just like the just like the Austin Mankind match. It was good that we had this on the live taping. I think that added a lot to it. Both guys really battered each other pretty good. The finish was good too, as Bret, obviously was going to break his promise, right? He was full of shit. You could tell. So already
Yeah.
too, a little bit of a heel sign. Oh, I'm going to show the integrity, and then immediately does the same thing he's bitching about Shawn doing.
Yep.
But Austin does deserve it, of course, with everything he's done to Bret. But this is a good start. It shows the top of the cards are going to be mayhem. I went 2 3/4, as I feel like it was just not a lot to it. If we got another few minutes out of this and maybe something more focused, but it wasn't meant to be that. It was just meant to be like a wild brawl around ringside into the finish. So I enjoyed it as an opening segment. As a match, it was whatever. But again, we have some energy in the building, which is nice.
Yeah, I gave it 3 stars. I enjoyed it as well. I thought it was frantic and got its point across. I thought Vader for once looked very strong and powerful, which is something he's not booked very well.
Maybe he will be now, coming off of this with a match with the Undertaker at the Rumble. Like, this is maybe finally something,
Hopefully. I mean, it does seem like, I know I like him in Final Four down the road, so we'll see if he goes on a little run. But yeah, he was good here. Him and Austin have good chemistry. I mean, Austin, as we go towards the end of the year, we talked about it, and I think obviously like Shawn has the higher end matches between Mind Games and the Diesel No Holds Barred match, and depending on where you land on the Iron Man. But Austin also has the Bret match, and I mean, just from a TV and entertainment, Austin's the MVP to me at WWF in '96. Like, it's pretty clear. And I think if you watch, we've watched everything on Raw, but if you took a compartmentalized, compilation of here's Austin's run, one, you would see the progression. Because even with the Savio stuff, it was fine to good. It was just get rid of DiBiase, and there was problems. But since really August, I mean, anytime he's been in the ring, it's been pretty electric, and there's been something frantic or exciting going on, which watching these full scope of these shows, it so enhances your enjoyment. That makes this 3-star match feel so much more important and engaging. And that, when you're in a competitive environment, is so important. Because even the Shawn matches that he has had that are maybe technically pretty good on TV, they haven't had that urgency to where, if you were watching this, to me, if I'm putting myself in 1996, sitting at home, I only have one TV, and I'm watching this match, it compels you, okay, let me stick with this and not see what's on Nitro. And that's just so important right now. So it's well done across the board. And Bret, I mean, this too, I thought did a good job of when Vader goes after Bret, it shows that just everything's kind of in disarray too. So they're really trying to create a frantic environment.
Yep.
And that sometimes can seem a little scatterbrained with the booking, and I think that's true. I think part of that's embedded in truth, where they didn't quite know exactly where they were going. They had to kind of hope for Mania and stuff like that, as we talked about, but there's still some moving pieces more than, last year, the first year we did this, it seemed pretty clear that once Bret beat Diesel at Survivor Series, it was going to be, Bret versus Shawn. It was headed that way. They did kind of the mirage with Shawn passing out, to try to stretch it out. But that's what was going to happen. Everything here seems more frantic, but again, from the way things felt so sterile, I will take that. I will take a frantic booking.
And it feels like we're probably going to go to Bret Shawn again in Mania, but to your point, it's not definite. There's still a path to a Bret Austin rematch for sure, right? Yeah. Taker seems like maybe he's getting back into a main event mix a little bit. He's done with Mankind. He's fighting with Vader. Vader's getting elevated. It feels like we finally have some star power back. And that's something that's been lacking for a while now. And Bret coming back just adds to it. We kind of needed that to get back over the hump. But when you look at it, Austin has now been fully baked and elevated over the last 3 months. So we have him as a star. We get Bret Hart back as a star. Michael's still a star. Sid has been elevated over the last 2 months as a star. Undertaker's always there with the star power. If they can get Vader back on track, and that's not even including Mankind. So it's like we're all of a sudden from a company that 3 months ago felt like we had no big names and a bunch of just mid-card dudes that were never going to take that next step. Feels like we suddenly have like a really deep main event picture with maybe 4 to 6 guys that could realistically main event WrestleMania.
Yeah, even some of the guys that they were putting in the main event in the summer, like Bulldog and Vader.
Yeah.
What they did on this show and what they've done with Bulldog the past couple of weeks with his interaction with Austin, it almost feels hotter than when he was when they were fighting for the title.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And even just guys like Owen and Mero, like dudes, you could tell they wanted to maybe elevate. Goldust had fallen off, so we were like that SummerSlam Mind Game stretch. We were lacking big time.
Very rough.
When it came to name, stars, and talent. I mean, we were on our third Taker Goldust match at that point. We were hurting. And as great as Mankind versus Michaels was, and Mankind had been built well, he still wasn't like a top level guy going into that match. It felt great because we enjoyed all his work and he had been putting on quality stuff with Undertaker, but he hadn't really been established yet. And you could argue he really still isn't at this point. But
right.
All right, we get in your house highlights from last night, including Vince's interview with Ahmed Johnson. We then go to the ring for our next match, which, believe it or not, we're still here for another taping. Razor Ramon and Diesel taking on the Godwins. So it felt like, man, we were like onto something hot, and now here we are back to this. I really think like Razor and Diesel, they just did these guys like no favors at all. And even if they thought they had some faith in them as young guns that had a good look and could work a bit, like they should have just had them ditch this stupid gimmick. Like just come out on this night here, be like, look, we did it your way, JR. We still didn't win the tag titles. We're not Razor Ramon and Diesel. Everyone knows it. Here's where Glenn J, whatever, and then maybe they have a shot, right? Maybe they can do something. But as is, like this gimmick is completely dead in the water. The Godwins also are not very inspirational at this point. As a tag team.
I mean, you talk about like having the remote control, like
we're flipping.
I can't explain how fast I would have changed the channel when I mean, it's like you had a hot segment and you come back to this. So there's still problems that are plaguing it, but.
All right, Razor and Diesel come out. They're fresh off their big loss last night, like we mentioned. Phineas and Razor start off. Phineas clotheslines him to the floor. We get some usual dumb jokes about Phineas from King. He slams Razor, tags Hank, who slams Phineas on top of him. JR knows that Hillbilly Jim's not here tonight as Hank works the arm. Diesel tags in, goes on the attack. Vince asks Ross if he's pleased with his boy's performance. Ross says last night left him feeling empty, even though Vince thinks it was a stellar performance for Razor and Diesel. Hank comes back with an elbow. King rips Bret's whining. The Godwins work the arm. They quick tag as Ross says Sid has beaten Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart now with the powerbomb over the course of 1 month. Razor and Diesel bait and Hank. They take him down and work him over. The crowd tries to rally Hank, but Diesel keeps pouring it on until he drops him on his head. Hank spikes him down as JR says, we don't need clowns, garbage men, plumbers, and pig farmers. We just need great competitors. Pretty direct shot of the Godwins here. You don't usually see him like include the current guys. Usually just kind of shits on the stuff from the past. So be interesting to see if that plays a role at all. Things break down and all four go into it. Phineas drops his head. Ramon loads up the Razor's edge. Henry blocks and hits a slop drop. Diesel comes in, powerbombs Phineas, and Razor covers for the win. Again, it's kind of just whatever. The crowd was actually in it a bit, but it was slow and basic as usual with these four guys. I like the finish. I thought the powerbomb actually looked pretty good. The push rolls on. They win again. Ross seems checked out. He's like, done with these guys. They're no longer the flavor of the month for him. He brought him in and he's done with them already. I went 1.5 stars. I actually thought the slop drop was it. I thought the Godwins are going to win and even more of a burial for Razor Diesel. But they end up coming back and winning. So we'll see if they're going to keep them going or what. But I mean, to be in the second match on a live taping the night after a pay-per-view shows you they're at least planning on them being players for another taping cycle at this point.
I would too. I actually don't. I didn't think this was good, but I did think it just as a match. I didn't think it was as bad as it could have been. I mean, it wasn't exciting though. They announced Bret versus Razor for next week.
King of the Ring 93, Royal Rumble 93 rematch.
They love doing that, like saying it's gonna be Bret versus Razor to try to confuse somebody. I did think that King had one good joke in where he said he told Phineas that he was illiterate, and he said, "That's a lie. My parents are married." That's pretty funny. And then they say like it's pretty scary when Hank's the brains of the outfit.
Very
But you
true.
did have some stuff that like we talked about where Ross like Ross and Vince have to be on opposite sides. So it made no sense.
Right.
Where like Ross is actually critiquing them. And now Vince all of a sudden is defending them, saying, "Well, I think they've had a stellar performance." It's like, what these dudes have lost every big match they've been in. What's been stellar about their performance? That drives me crazy.
And they even had help from Austin the night before. Like you could argue they should have won over Bulldog and like they kind of did botch that chance, especially with Austin taking Bulldog out. Yeah.
Like I actually thought Ross being critical. I was like, okay. And then Vince just runs this like, well, I think they've had a stellar performance. It's like, oh, shut up, Vince. Like, no chance they've had a stellar performance.
The heel Ross stuff is really lasted longer than I thought. Like, I really thought Survivor Series was it. I was surprised it's still going. I'm confident that after the Rumble it's gone, because after the Rumble is when we get 10-gallon hat JR from here on out. So I'm pretty sure it transitions a bit from there. I don't think he's as acerbic, but I'm curious if it continues to this whole taping, because he's not as heelish as he was like around, a Buried Alive when it was like at his peak, but he's still kind of doing it here.
Yeah. Finish I thought looked good. I mean, Phineas is a pretty big boy, so the jackknife looked good, which not all of Diesel's jackknives have looked pretty impressive. So this one looked good. So,
well, and the thing with a team like Diesel and Razor, right? The two young guys, not a lot of experience teaming up. They're forced into this gimmick, and maybe they're starting to put it together. But the problem is the gimmick is so stupid, and they went so hard with it. No one gives a shit. So even if they're starting to get going a little bit, like maybe like their matches aren't too bad by this point, and they're getting some chemistry and they're figuring it out, it's too late. That's why I'm thinking like they should have rebooted them. And just maybe if they give them a fresh coat of paint, there's something there to them, right? Because to your point, like this is probably one of their better matches, and they're not in there with like Bulldog and Owen or top workers. I mean, so maybe there's something there if they kept building the chemistry, but by that point, it's just too late. All right, Sid is backstage.
I mean, it's tough to know. It's tough to know like when to pull the plug on something, but I think with the way that they failed, it was time.
Yeah. It's time. All right. Sid is backstage. Vince congratulates him on his win. He talks about him beating Michaels and Hart with power bombs in less than 30 days. Sid says nobody can beat him because he's the master, and anyone that takes him on will go down. Sid says the outcome of the Rumble is not in question, even in Shawn Michaels' backyard, as he thrives on adversity and will be a sweet victory. Vince brings up Jose Lothario, and Sid reminds him what happened at MSG, tells him to stay home. We see Shawn standing around backstage as we go to break. A pretty basic Sid interview. I think they're trying to do their best to keep him simple, to the point, quick, not start rambling and losing his train of thought. Just, play it simple, right? You're a monster. You're confident. You're the champion. You're going to kick ass. And like they're leaving it that right now.
Yeah, I like that he told Jose to stay at home. Otherwise, it was pretty basic. And I thought when they showed Shawn in the bag, he looked annoying. So, not great.
We'll see how that plays out. Sid, I think Sid in this run, you always hear about like Paul Heyman and ECW, like, oh, they hide the weaknesses and play to the strengths. I think they've really done a good job with Sid during this run, subscribing to that philosophy. Like, they've kept him in quick matches. They've kept his promos tight. They've let him just be a badass. It's the opposite of everything they did wrong in 95, where he was having long matches. He was plotting. He was a chicken shit. Like, and it's working. They're not overexposing him. We'll see if it gets there, but right now it feels like they're doing things to try and keep him in check. The Bret match the night before, a little bit long, but like everything else, I thought they've kept pretty tight.
Yeah, I mean, he's a champion, so he has to be featured. I don't know. We'll see. To me, it feels like he's kind of peaked. He peaked at Survivor Series. And then we can see if he gains some momentum going forward. But
he's going to have to be heel into the Rumble. I mean, that's obvious, right? So we'll see how that affects him. If they could pull that off with how over he's been, because they're not going to have it split. And that's why they're running San Antonio, right? And doing this match was to get Shawn back on the face side.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, he's been all right. I mean, I think they've
Right.
certainly not overexposed him, but he's also someone that it's always difficult for me. Like when your champion's not one of your two or three most interesting
Right.
characters, and he's not right now. So
All right, we get a Full Metal album ad, and then we get a hype graphic for the Royal Rumble coming on January 19th. Shawn Michaels is backstage. He chats with Vince about Sid's confidence. What it would be like to be publicly humiliated in front of 70,000 fans. Shawn says he's been humiliated a number of times already, but it's in his
there's a lot.
backyard. Lothario is a legend there. They don't like what Sid did, but he doesn't cry over spilled milk. His problem is what Sid did to Lothario, but he's going to take his belt back along the way. He won't cry and whine like Bret has. And Vince agrees. He says, yes, Bret did whine earlier. Vince asks Shawn if he'll have any excuses if he loses, and Shawn says he makes no excuses. He lives his life openly on national TV, and he'll explain every intimate detail of his life, and nobody else can. He'll lay it on the line in San Antonio, and Bret can cry, whine, and wear tights doing commentary and be a wrestler for 24 hours a day, but he'll never be Shawn Michaels. I thought it was the usual shaky Shawn stuff where he's like trying too hard, but I did like that last line. I thought that was a good dig because Shawn the night before was in street clothes and Bret's out there in his tights in commentary. So I thought that was a pretty funny line. The rest was the Shawn that we've seen.
Yeah, it just comes off as so disingenuous. Like saying that I mean, I mean, you do have to think of it from our perspective. Like we know what was going on backstage, so it's tough to separate that. But it's just like saying, like, I'm so open and honest about everything, and knowing like a year ago we had the whole getting beat up in Syracuse or whatever situation. In 2 months he's gonna lose his smile. It's like there's so much crap that's about to happen where he's not very transparent and open. So and I think the opposite from the Bret stuff is I do think Bret was playing for a little bit of that edge, whereas Shawn is so like just nonchalant where he'll say stuff like, well, I mean, you cannot like me and that's fine. It doesn't bother me, which I get, but
Right.
I think it does. I think it definitely does. So it just I don't know. I really dislike him as a character in this stretch for sure.
All right. We go back to the ring for quite the match. As Doug Furnas and Phil LaFon, now a month in to this run and kind of spinning wheels, taking on TL Hopper and Dr. X, who usually was played by Tom Pritchard. I'm assuming that's who it was here.
Yep.
We join in progress. LaFon is smacking X around. JR says Dr. X is a newcomer. Furnas chucks Hopper around with ease. He grinds him down and works the arm. We get a lot of Sid, Bret, Shawn talk as Furnas and LaFon dominate the match. Furnas is a nice spine buster. He tags LaFon, but Hopper is able to pancake him. JR says Hopper has been around the block, and King makes some toilet jokes. X hits a nice gut wrench powerbomb, chops away. LaFon counters with a snap suplex. Furnas comes in and cleans house with a tight scoop power slam on Hopper for 2. Things break down, but LaFon murders Hopper with a head and arm German. And just a gross bump by poor Tony Anthony here. Probably didn't want to take this at this point in his career. Fun squash there with Furnas and LaFon getting the win. Just two guys Furnas and LaFon could chuck around and show off with. So I thought they made the right choice putting these guys in there at this point. I ended up going 2 stars. If you're gonna get guys to bump around, Tony Anthony and Dr. Tom aren't the worst choices. So
Don't say I'm not fair because I like all 4 of these guys. I want a star and a half on this. I mean, it was all right for what it was. We talked about it. I mean, the crowd's just still not really fond of Furnas and LaFon. They cannot get a positive reaction for much that they do. Even when they dump people right on their heads, it still don't get the oohs and ahs that like the cruiserweights and WCW get. It's a very interesting dynamic to watch. Otherwise, I didn't think there was a whole lot here. King, in mentioning the Shawn promo, he said he looked like a what's what instead of a who's who. Oh, that was I didn't even understand what that meant. I mean, I get the context, but it was a dumb line. And then Furness's drop kick on Hopper, his timing's usually like really good on that. If there were like Jim Brunzell or somebody like that, and it was a little off tonight, so that was a little disappointing. But I mean, otherwise, this was serviceable. I do wish that Furnas and LaFon were getting a better reaction So I'm still looking for them to kind of get that crowd support. It kind of seems like they're getting thrown out as a vacuum. And before, you could sort of argue that, like, where they were in the taping and whatnot. But I mean, this, like, you had one hot segment and then you actually had a tag match that garnered a better reaction than this one, with 4 guys that seemed completely just on the back burner. So it was odd.
Yeah, first in the fun of quickly. I don't know. The tag division is still weird. It's like
Yep.
it's like Bulldog and Owen, like they've helped elevate the belts. They kind of steadied the division a bit, but now they're not doing any favors because they're kind of involved in this Bret and Austin stuff. They're not really in the tag division, but I guess maybe they helps keep the belts on them to keep them like in a main angle. I think I would have had Furnace on the Fawn beat them at its time, get the belts off of them, and let them be part of the Bret feud, and then just have the tag division send around Furnace on the Fawn for a little bit while you add talent and figure out what you want to do. Like, why let these other teams just dick around when they could just have the gold? And Bulldog and Owen are busy anyway. So,
Right.
all right. So, Billy Gunn is backstage as he's ready to take his brother out tonight. And then it's time for our Karate Fighters Tournament final, Chad. Finally here. The King is smirking. He heads into the ring to take on Sable. She comes out with Mark Merrow to a big pop. King says he knew Sable would bring Merrow, but it won't happen this way, so he has a backup too. And he brings out Hunter Hearst Helmsley because Merrow and Hunter will face yet again for the Intercontinental title next week. Our feud of 96. We visit with your friends George and Adam. They're in the Alamo Dome. They're waiting it out. They're talking about Sid's win from the night before.
Yeah.
They have this is part of their bet to swap seats. So
these idiots pirated the pay-per-view in the Alamo Dome. I mean, what's taught me through this? How do they watch the pay-per-view in the Alamo Dome?
Maybe someone who works in the security office ordered it on pay-per-view in the security room, and they checked it out.
All right, like even if you put all logic aside and say there's no events in the Alamo Dome for the next 6 weeks, so that's for starters. How long do you think you'd have to take to be at a place and realize you've gotten there 35 days before anybody else is going to the event? Like,
they're excited. They're there early. They cannot wait for the show.
Like, camp out. You see, like, on Black Friday, people camp it out and stuff like that. And that seems sometimes preposterous. Like, these guys were sitting in their seat for.
You've taken this way more personally than I think anyone's ever taken these skits.
It
really bothers you.
So stupid. It is such a lame, stupid thing.
Like, yeah, I would say they're the stupidest people in the Alamo Dome until Ryan Gray showed up in 2023. So. Broke the record. All right, well, they're there. They're excited to swap seats over this bet from its time. We go back to the ring. King and Sable give some quick one-liners. They set the stage. As Cyber Fist will take on Tiger Ninja. JR is narrating the action. The battle's a long one, actually, for the Karate Fighters. But Sable wins. We get a big pop. Lawler's pissed. Vince says he's publicly humiliated, which is a big buzzword for him tonight. I think he used that like 3 or 4 times throughout the show. King says Sable's a woman and a cheater, and he wants a rematch, but Vince says there's no rematch clause. Merrow gets in King's face. King shoves him, and that sets up Hunter attacking Merrow. Him and King beat Merrow down. Goldust comes out and attacks Hunter and knocks him to the floor and into the crowd. Merrow runs in as well. He chases Hunter off. Goldust comes back into the ring. And here we go. It's a pretty infamous Raw segment from. I remember it very well at the time, being like, "Oh shit!" Like
I didn't know what happened in this till.
I realized it once Goldust came out that this was going to be this, because I knew the match was coming soon during this time period. And I think this is kind of forgotten when you think of like the edginess that keeps creeping in more and more into '97. Like I think this one kind of gets overlooked, but they definitely. This is like the edgiest Goldust has been in a bit. So he gets in the ring and King calls him a freak and says, "What's the big idea?" He has no beef with him. He doesn't get Goldust issue with Hunter. King says Hunter made a pass at Marley, and he's a handsome guy, a lot of money. He's the Intercontinental Champion, and Goldust should be happy that a real man would make a pass at her. King says he doesn't mean that Goldust isn't a man, but you know. And Goldust says, "What? What am I? A what?" And King keeps dancing around it, takes the mic kind of sheepishly and says, "Queer." Vince is ready to bail out, but Goldust stares at King and gives the very famous no, and then punches him. Marlena comes in. Goldust kisses her hand, and it feels like this is the official Goldust's straight character now, and he's with Marlena romantically.
Right.
It's kind of been teased that he was ambiguous for a long time with all the mind games and everything, and they really leaned into a lot of that. But this is kind of now where it's like, all right, that's no longer a thing. He officially made that statement to King. If you can have anyone do it, King's probably the guy, I guess. So
tasteless as ever.
Yeah, I mean, it was a memorable segment and edgy. I could see there being issue with it, with them, the way they play it as usual. But in this time period, you're probably not going to get that flack.
Yeah. Vince had some doozies on commentary throughout all this. First he has the audacity to compare Sable versus King in the karate final to Billie Jean King and Bobby Riggs, which is just, a seminal sports moment you always hear about. And
this is a seminal sports entertainment.
Yeah, I don't hear ESPN mentioning the 1996 Karate Fighters tournament very often when they talk about sports equality. And then Vince doubles down on that by saying no king has ever been beaten by any woman. So there you go. Do you think that I would guess that the tournament was fixed, right? You think that Sable's
I would think so.
Person was glued
they
down.
Probably strapped hers down or whatever.
Cyber Fist. Was that an inside joke that Sable was Cyber Fist? And then you get the stuff with Goldust right after King makes his remarks. Vince is like, well, we've come this far. We might as well stay with it. So he's like kind of presenting us. Because I do think that's a little bit of a difference in now we've kind of established Vince as the owner.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, if he's letting this crap happen on his watch, like, how is he dictating that? And that's a role that really, like, he leans into more and more until we get his complete heel character where he's like, we lost all control. He tries to regain control or whatever. Otherwise, I don't know. Do you think it was needed for the Goldust character, or you think it was just something to like be push the edge?
I don't think it was needed. I think they want him to obviously turn face to try and mix it up because he's just been dead in the water as a heel at this point. He's got no heat at all. I think they just went about it in a different way without blatantly saying no. Like, just have him start treating Marlena like his girlfriend. Like whatever. Like just and on commentary, like, oh, Goldust had us all fooled. Whatever, and like that's fine. Like
he was using mind games to try.
I don't think you need a king to directly do the accusation, right? And then
right.
So it's definitely a memorable segment, and like I said, they were trying to obviously get Goldust onto the face side, which I think is it's crazy. This fucking guy's only been around like not even like a little over a year. He came in so hot. He was our MVP through April on Raw, and then just completely hit the skids. Like it was quick.
That Ultimate Warrior match at Good Friends, Better Enemies almost is like. It's almost like everything down from that because even like the Ahmed stuff was.
It was fine. That was probably the high point from April on, but the Taker matches never really clicked for us.
I think
fine, but
we're sort of in the weird position where we've had people argue that those are like really good, and then you see like the Scott Keith reviews where they're really bad, and we're kind of like, we're in the middle. But I don't think you could say like they were outstanding. I didn't.
The highlight was definitely the rigor mortis promo when he's on top of Taker in the ring. Right. And then we had the weird stuff with Mankind with the mommy that didn't really go anywhere with Sable and all that. So
no.
Anyway, we'll see if the face turn gets them going. We get a special little gift from the WWF Carolers led by Classy Freddie Blassie.
Powerbomb. Yeah. This was fine. Better than George and Adam. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, it was cool. It was the holiday theme. And now here we are, brother versus brother. The brothers Gunn, Bart versus Billy. I've been waiting for this for months, Chad. This explosion of the guns has been coming. 3.5 years as a team. Vince says Hunter faces Mero next week. The title can change hands by DQ or count out. So we'll see. All that tells me is that Mero's going to fucking job again. We get both guns, and they both use the smoke guns theme, which is funny. Are they fighting for custody over the theme? The winner gets the theme? It was weird. You should just give him Billy like something else or whatever. Or just have him come out with no theme for this one night, you know. We also find out again Bret Hart takes on Rozzero Ramon next week. Billy attacks Bart, getting in the ring. We get a wild brawl on the floor. Back in the ring. After break, we see that Bart's wife is in the crowd, and Vince's Billy's wife and kids are here as well. And I guess the future gun club are in the house.
Kind of funny in retrospect.
Right. Billy grinds away. They must have been pretty young then, right? Here, I mean,
yeah, he's actually. I mean, he's old. One of them, I think it's Colton. He's older than you might think. Like,
okay.
I think he was born in I mean, he's still young, but I think he was born in like 90 or 89 or something like that.
Okay. All right. Billy grinds away. Vince talks about the technical difficulties from last week, your favorite ongoing storyline of 1996. He says DirecTV and Request TV will present in your house tomorrow night 3 times, starting early in the evening on DirecTV and Wednesday at 7 p.m. on Request TV for those that had issues last night. Billy snaps off a neck breaker. He works the head as Bart's wife is looking pensive. Billy works his brother over as Vince thinks Hunter's cooked next week. Bart catches Billy on a charge and it's a stun gun. And Billy collapses in an awkward position and does not move. The ref checks Billy, calls for the bell. Bart stands in shock. Billy's wife comes in. She's yelling at Bart for doing this to his brother. Bart's wife comes in and a ring attendant stops her. So I think he thought it was like a fan or something coming in the way it goes down. Then he looks over and gets the okay and he lets her in. Vince thinks Billy may have gotten a stinger. He's rambling. His officials are checking. Billy is wailing that he can't move. Bart demands help. Help as a fan yells, "Where's the Undertaker?" If you heard that,
no,
made me laugh. After a break, paramedics have secured Billy. They prep to cart him off as Bart is in shambles, and we dip out. The match was nothing. It started kind of hot, but then it slowed into the angle. The ending just ground the show to a halt after what was a hot episode. I mean, whatever. I guess they had to do this on the live show, or else the word would have leaked out, and they wanted this to be like a pretty shocking angle. I don't know if anyone cares enough. We did this almost literally a year to the day, a year and a month to the day with Sean collapsing. And I don't know why we're going to this ruse, by Billy to get his brother back. So is it a work or is Billy really hurt by Bart and he's going to try and hold it over Bart's head? Like, what's the angle going to be? So I thought it started hot as a show and finished quiet. I just want a star. Weird angle. Like, I don't know if we give a shit enough about the guns to like put this much energy into an angle like this. I think it would have been better just splitting them off and letting them do their own thing. I will say this: the first like 30 seconds after it happened at the time in '96, I thought it was real. Because Billy's selling is really good. Like he lands in a way that looks pretty like you may land if your like neck got snapped and you fucking collapse to the mat. He's like bent like this. His legs are crooked. Looked like Vecna just snapped him in half. So I mean, it looked like it was possible, but then as soon as Billy's wife is yelling at Bart, like it's obviously an angle. So I don't know where it's gonna go, but we'll see. I'm curious if they're gonna play like he really hurt him, or if it was like a Billy Roos, which would be an odd way to go about it.
Yeah, I didn't like this. Star for me too. Pull apart before the break was good. They come back from the break, they're completely blown up. Billy on top sucks. Like he just sucks as a heel on top. And then the finish, you described it. I don't know. I didn't really understand what it was. I mean, Billy's gone for a while, and then he comes back pretty much repackaged. So,
well, they do. I think they do a couple angle shots with him, like where he's in the hospital, and like Bart. They play up that Bart is like feels bad and awful about it. So I don't know if it was meant to be something where they were gonna like I said, Billy was gonna like play the guilt trip and like hold it over Bart's head and make him like team. Like I think maybe it was going somewhere like that, and then they just decided to scrap it and move along because I don't think they ever really go back to it after like a few weeks of like health updates and Bart feeling guilty. I think they just move on as like 97 goes. But yeah, Billy, I think he comes back like right after Mania. I think
just seems like a lot of momentum killed for him.
Yeah.
I mean, Dr. Vince is in the house because he immediately calls it a stinger and says it's. And then another thing, he says it's a stinger, they're talking about how severe it is, and then Vince says, "Well, that's somewhat common for wrestlers." It's like, well, why are you like downgrading? I
Right.
don't know.
Yeah, play it up. It's supposed to be real bad.
I hate that.
Right.
It was just a weird thing, and nobody knew what to act. And then, as the viewer, you're just like,
Right.
it was
real? Yeah.
well, and it was too recent to the Sean thing, where it was like, all right, we just saw this, guys. Like, let's do something else.
Well, and the time of year, it's like
yeah,
recent, but it's like exactly around when Sean did it. What was that? The night after Survivor Series? Like, so it's basically a year later. You're doing like the same angle, ending Raw, a collapsing injury. Like it's the same. You're just doing the same thing. It's just less heat because no one gives a shit about Billy Gunn.
Right.
All right, let's get to our awards to wrap Raw here. Match of the night was easily Austin Vader.
Yeah.
The moment I went with Hart attacking Austin at the end of that match.
Yep. I did the whole pull apart between them and Vader. Yep.
I initially put Goldust as MVP, but I'm waffling now. Do you have Bret or do you have Goldust?
I went Bret.
Yeah, I'm going to change it. I think Bret was better on this night. I did like Goldust standing up for himself, and it felt like some energy finally, like out of him, as he's been so freaking dead lately. But that whole segment's questionable.
Well, he can finally say he's straight, so he's very happy to
let
that be known. No. Yeah.
Do you have any commentary lines?
Nah, not beyond what I mentioned. Pretty rough night on commentary, to be honest. Not didn't see much consistency. They gotta they need to settle. They definitely need to settle the commentary since they got rid of the Kevin Kelly booth and all that. It's where's Ross gonna land? King's still picking his spots, but as we see, he's still heavily involved in angles, like where he has to be an in-ring competitor. Yeah. Vince is all over the place trying to be antagonistic to both of them, so it's a mess.
The Final grade, no shots fired, right? I don't believe.
No, I don't think
so. Final grade, I went 6 out of 10. I mean, it started on pace to be something like maybe our best Raw in a while, and I still liked it overall because the Razor Diesel match was fine. The Furnace and the Fawn match was like whatever. We had 3 big angles. We had the Bret stuff. We had Austin Vader had some energy. The live Raws are usually the best of the taping, so I thought it was a fine Raw. Like stuff at least, like we said earlier, shit's happening. Right, it's better than the milquetoast crap we dealt with for most of the year. So it feels like there's some energy in the building and some different mixing things up a little bit.
Yeah, I went 5.5. It was fine, some good, some bad. Some stuff happened, so I'll give them credit for that. So slightly above average.
Debuts, I just had Dr. X.
Yeah, I think Dr. X is the only.
I don't think any dropped angles I noticed.
Well, Goldust being gay.
Yeah, but that wasn't dropped. I mean, that was a change in character, I think. If they had just changed it without saying it, maybe it would have been. But I mean, they went about it directly. So.
Gotcha.
All right. So that'll do it for Raw. We're going to head over to Nitro, but just a reminder, if you don't mind taking a minute, if you haven't already, if you're enjoying this or you're just checking in, just subscribe, like the video, share it around. We have a lot of cool content out there on North-South Connection that we'll talk about a little bit later. But if you don't mind just helping us out with a little sub and a like, we'd greatly appreciate it. So, all right, Chad, why don't you take us over to TNT? What's going on Nitro?
All right. So Hogan's still in the intro.
Mm-hmm.
Surfer Sting. So no change there. We're from Pensacola, Florida tonight. So home of Jennifer Smith. So,
there you go.
There you go. And almost immediately, here's a minor change. Tony and Larry are at the main announcer booth now.
Yes.
So we talked about that since Bischoff's heel turn, how it kind of been awkward as they transitioned into hour 2. Like that one week they had Tanae be the host for like literally a minute until Tony hightailed it back there.
Do you think they were doing that because they were still thinking they were going to have the NWO Nitro, so they would have Larry and Tony at ringside, and then the NWO guys would be in the booth? So maybe that's why they like hesitated to change it.
Maybe. I think they thought that we essentially had NWO Nitro this episode.
Right. Yep.
I think they thought long term that Larry would just be gone and would be doing Saturday night, and then if they thought he was going to get involved physically, which they seem to be teasing. But yeah, I think they just didn't have the logistics figured out all the way when they decided to make the switch. So now they've hammered it. It was seamless this week, so it was good. Almost immediately, the NWO music starts, and out comes Eric Bischoff, DiBiase, and Vincent. They head over to the announce booth, take it over. Eric said he misses it. Larry says that they don't have enough men. Eric reminds him of his contract. Larry's like, I don't need a contract. Ted says the NWO is there to stay and get used to it. We're taking over now. Tony walks away, but Larry's still not budging. Ted physically takes off Larry's headset and is like, how bad do you want to push this? Eric calls him the living has-been, and Larry finally kind of gives up and walks off.
Yeah, he's like, I don't need this shit. Basically, I'm done with this.
So Eric welcomes us to the show. He calls it NWO Monday Nitro. And then I thought this was interesting how they presented this. So they show clips of last week with Piper and his interaction. This segment, all we get is Bischoff coming out and about to get in the ring, and then they cut it.
Yeah.
So they edit it to show Bischoff not getting beat up. We come back, Eric calls him a coward, and all this. And Ted says, we've always been wondering why he wears a skirt. And he waited until Eric turned around and hit him with the chair. Eric lets us know right off the top, Hogan's in the house. Piper, where are you? And Eric also says Sting is there tonight, and he's NWO for life. So to me, they really set up a lot in this segment. I mean, this is 3 minutes, but wham bam, NWO's taking over. They show a little bit of clips of last week. We know Hogan's here. We know Sting's here. So they really tried to set the table and hook you in. I thought it was well done.
Well, they're off the gate. They're up against Austin and Vader and shit, right? So they know they're trying to bring you in to stick around. I thought Larry's line, it's been a while, but you're going to need more guys. Or it's been a long time, Ted, but you're going to need more guys. I thought that was a great badass line from Larry. I really like that. It doesn't hold up, but it was cool in the moment.
Toby Keith.
There you go. It was a good segment. I liked it too. It definitely started things off, and I'm curious to see how the NWO Nitro holds up.
So that leads us to our opener. Very fun pairing this match. Psychosis versus Steven Regal. Eric lets us know he has a surprise for tonight. Regal's jawing at the crowd. A USA champ breaks out, which I always find funny when there's two non-USA competitors wrestling, but there you go. Regal starts off with some arm work. Psychosis kind of floats it over. They go back and forth as we head to a break. Just a cool note of continuity that I liked. When they go to break, it's the NWO music. That's the bumper music. I thought that was a nice little touch to show that. We come back, and I don't know what happened. Regal looked like he got dumped in the same moat the Executioner did in your house because he was drenched.
Yeah.
I don't know if this was
probably the alcohol. Yeah,
Good Lord, he was sweating up a storm as we came back. And I didn't even realize this till right now. They're in Pensacola and Raw's in Tampa. They're pretty.
They're not too far.
Yeah, we could have had a little invasion. If they'd have thought about that, that's kind of cool. I thought a nice pinfall attempt by Regal. When Psychosis kind of sends him down shoulder first, the spinning back kick gets a real big pop for Psychosis. He does a huge planche on the outside. He's getting a really good crowd reaction. I mean, he's someone that's been presented pretty much as a heel. It was a little weird, him versus Malenko, how he's presented, but pretty much this is about the best face reaction he's got. Running drop kick. Eric, I will say this. I like the opening. I thought Eric and Ted on commentary here talked a little bit too much about Hogan versus Piper. I understand they want to push that, but that's a match we talked about. It's kind of already been pushed. And they spent a lot of time talking about this. Eric says Hogan's pythons now are 24 inches and 5/8. calls him a wrestling god. It was just a lot of admiration for Hogan. And then one cool thing as we head to the ending stretch of this match is the crowd stayed on their feet and was very invested in this match. That's always one of my favorite things. Like when you see two guys that you've never matched up, you don't really know what to expect, and the crowd kind of gets into it, and by the end, they're for it. So Regal hits a nasty German suplex. Spinning kick by Psychosis looked a little shaky from the camera angle we got, and then Regal gets real aggressive. He like gives a lot of stiff palm strikes to Psychosis, locks him in to this like nasty Heart Dungeon, Billy Robinson-esque stretch. It was kind of like the Regal stretch,
Right.
but he kept varying it up where at one point he grapevine the arm, he put it sort of in like a chicken wing. Then he stretched it out to where it looked like a full Nelson almost. It was really nasty. He goes for his top rope butterfly suplex, but gets put down off of that. And then Psychosis hits a huge splash for another close near fall. A lot of pin reversals, a super kick from Psychosis, and then Regal gets aggressive again, sends him down quickly, and locks on the Regal stretch for the win. So I thought this was a really good opener. Really exciting match. Could a little bit of a styles clash, but this is like the WCW that I love from this era. Like you got these two guys that can work. They gave them enough time. There wasn't like necessarily a huge story built in when they came out there, but they still put on a very exciting match that got you invested. You wanted to see who won, and that was that. So I went 3 1/4 for this one. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was really good, and thank God, like a break from the Duggan Pittman, type openers that we've had on and off for a bit now, kind of back to where we should be with the hot openers, with the talent that they have. I thought the commentary here all was really good too. Like you didn't mention too much of it, but Bischoff says Sting is NWO for life. He's going to take on Rick Steiner tonight. DiBiase does a nice job. Talks about Regal defending the TV title on a recent European tour. Bischoff mentions that the contracts or the wrestlers and officials and broadcasters now will convert on Christmas. So they've added a few days to the original timeline. Bischoff says they've gotten calls from over the world, people trying to join the NWO, and they're going to have a surprise tonight with a new international star in action. He says New Japan has become the minor leagues for the NWO. Bischoff talks about all the athletes that are in the NWO, the members of the Steelers we've seen, AC Green, Kevin Green, he says, is even NWO. A cool little tidbit, too, where Bischoff says Regal recently impressed him at a Christmas party, that they'll meet up soon. So, like, I don't know if this is a real story. Like, did Regal get hammered at a Christmas party, maybe, and like make a scene or something? But I thought that was a cool attempt. DiBiase calls Piper a B movie star. So just like a lot of good digs all through this. A lot of talk about Nick Patrick throughout. DiBiase says, "Can they play taps on bagpipes?" Which I thought was pretty funny. Starrcade. Bischoff does mention Starrcade is sold out. So just a lot of commentary throughout that really hit between Bischoff and DiBiase. You're actually a pretty good pair. Great opener, I thought overall. The crowd was digging it. Both guys are on point. Regal grinding, bouncing around. Psychosis never stayed still. It's really good chemistry, and you don't usually get that with Regal. Styles classes with Regal usually get ugly, but this one did not. Psychosis kept going, some unique offense. The finish was awesome too, as Regal just grinds through the win. I thought this was a hidden gem and a hot start. I actually went 3.5. I really like this a lot as an opening match.
So that'll put it as an official Wrestling Warzone hidden gem.
There you go.
I feel like this is one of the ones that really fits the name of that too, because I don't think this is one
No, definitely I didn't. I mean, I vaguely had a memory of a Regal Psychosis match, but I couldn't have told you when or how it happened or what it was. They may have another one.
Yeah, they do.
I feel like they do in '97 sometimes.
Yeah, they have another one, I think, in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, so
I know they do because our good friend Will from Texas put both of these on the 96 yearbook. Big Psychosis mark. So it was better than the Undertaker Goldust matches he put on there as well. So there you go. Our next match is Chavo Guerrero Jr. versus Big Bubba.
Big Bubba.
Big Bubba. Ted mentions that Bubba's wearing black. Bubba pounds right away. Chavo gets a drop toe hold and a suplex. Bubba's kind of rocking back and forth on the ropes. Bubba catches Chavo going for a plancha, slams him to the floor. He gets a clothesline, but he misses a splash. Chavo fires away with some punches, forearms, flying knee. He gets a flying forearm as well, and Bubba's really trying teetering, but not off his feet yet. He goes for a Rana, and the momentum takes Bubba backwards for a 1 count. Then Chavo hits the butt, which I don't recall him using much, but it looked good here. Like he really connected.
Well, Bischoff and DiBiase don't like it.
They're like, "What is that? A butt bump?" So that was funny. Eric even says, "Like, what the hell was that?" Senton gets 2 for Chavo as well, but he runs right into. I don't even know what was Bubba calling that, the hard times or whatever.
I don't know if he even had a name. Just a sidewalk slam.
A finisher. Yeah. If you see it, you know it. But
the Boss Man Slam.
Win. Yeah, Boss Man Slam. 3-minute match. I thought very spirited. Actually, I like the little man, big man dynamic. I think Bubba was probably motivated based on what was going to come later, so he gave a pretty good performance here. I mean, I went 2 stars. I enjoyed this for what it was.
I went 1.5 stars. Yeah, it was fine. Squash City, honestly, just dominant win for Bubba. So you can tell they obviously are kind of building him back up a little bit here toward the end of the year. This is our Valvoline replay. It comes in this match as well. But just a squash. So,
all right. So then we come back. Eric lets us know that it's Ted, the $1 billion man, DiBiase. And it's Masahiro Chono comes out with Sonny Ono. We get the great Japanese music that we talked about that Akira Kudo had, and many more, I'm sure, Japanese talent. So Gene does an interview with Chono and Ono. Eric and Ted already are hinting on commentary. There's something Sonny doesn't know, and
someone's gonna let him know what's up.
This is gonna be great. So Gene says that Chono, he's been informed. I guess he's got the scoops. So call the hotline. Gene lets us know Chono hasn't signed a contract with New Japan Pro Wrestling. Sonny lets us know he's helping him as his agent. He's negotiating with New Japan, and he reveals a New Japan shirt. Pretty much at the same time he does that, Chono unzips his jacket, and he's got a NWO shirt on. Ted loves it, along with their commentary. Surprise, surprise. So then Ono and Chono argue in Japanese. Gene's like, what did he say? And Ono's trying to spit it out, saying Chono said something about the NWO, but Chono grabs Sonny Ono, shoves him down as he walks to the ring. Eric and Ted are just cackling on the commentary. They let us know the NWO has gone international. So, I mean, we talked about like the NWO expansion and their hits and misses. Really, I'd say their only miss still to this point is in Wall Street. But I thought this was a hit, and I love the way this was presented. I mean, Chono's a cool guy.
He looks like a badass. Like he fits in the group. For sure. Like the New Japan tilt to it's a little fuzzy. Where is he in Japan? He's not with New Japan. Why is Ono suddenly representing him to go to New Japan, but he's here? Like I don't like the reason, the rationale to get him here was a little cloudy. But then when you realize it's a setup, it's like, well, who gives a shit? The NWO just fed Sonny Ono some bullshit and made him think he was getting a payday from this guy and fucked him up. We do get a classic Gene in English, you idiot, to Sonny Ono. Before Chono, he basically gave him like a shirt wedgie. It was weird.
Yeah, I think he was trying to rip the shirt, but
he kind of like pulled him up by it.
Yeah.
But no, it was a good segment. I mean, like you said, Chono's a good addition, and they're going to play it up now that they're invading New Japan. NWO's worldwide taking over.
It's crazy how much longevity this had in Japan too. Like NWO Japan's still a thing. Like when the Millionaires Club is hanging out in WCW. So like they outlasted the Stevie Ray and Vincent fighting for the rights to the black and white in a couple of years. A guy in the crowd had NWO. Now did he get his head shaved? Did you see this? I couldn't tell whether he was bald and he just took like a big Sharpie and put NWO, or he had his
I think he shaved it into his head.
Okay. Quite a commitment to the craft. So there you go. So this is Chris Jericho versus Masahiro Chono. Cool match on paper. Jericho's on the outside. Ted says he's wondering what happened. Series of kicks from Jericho, but Chono comes back with a Kuza kick. Down he goes. Action spills to the outside. Ted lets us know Chono can handle it. He's fine. Good inverted atomic drop. And then we get Eric doing the most brutal Japanese accent I've ever heard, where he talks about a phone call he had with Chono, where Chono said he wanted to go NWO. This was straight out of Paul Orndorff WrestleMania 2 playbook here. Chono gets the boot up on a Jericho charge in the corner, superplex by Jericho. Eric says, here was a big shots fired here. So Eric says people were mad in Japan like McMahon was when Lex Luthor came on board.
Yeah.
Then he says he watched the pay-per-view last night and enough is enough.
That's it. Basically saying throw in the towel, guys.
Really
shit's so bad. Like
stuff.
enough. Don't make us watch anymore.
Jericho misses a top rope spin kick. Then misses a charge and spills the outside. And this was kind of a weird finish. I don't know if I've ever seen this finish since, actually, where he gets his foot kind of tangled up in the rope. And Chono is just like pounding away on him. And Mark Curtis is the referee. He calls for the bell. Before they made the official announcement, I thought it might have been like a double count out thing, but he ends up disqualifying Chono. Chono wasn't like breaking it, and he was like choking him out. But a lot of times when that happens, like with the most notorious is Andre, getting his arm stuck in the ropes, and like the referee would be trying to break him free.
Right.
And like Curtis did nothing to help poor Jericho out. So
hey, it's like, well, it's all maybe it's NWO guys like fuck you, like whatever. Let him get DQ'd.
He just called for the bell. As a match, I thought this was very solid. It's more of an angle to kind of introduce Chono into the NWO than a match itself, but Jericho was able to show some fire, so I went 2.5.
Some good jokes from Bischoff and Ted too. How Jericho barely beat a ref and all that. It's like to kind of downplay him. Bischoff gets the classic Masa. He's my hero, Chono. He'll shorten that to Masa, my hero, Chono, going forward. But that's a pretty famous one. Ted said Chono is IWGA Tag Team Champion, so he botched that. Bischoff. And here's a probably if we did a most 90s category, this would get it. Bischoff implores people to order Starrcade early to avoid wait times.
Yes.
So they're kind of all over the place with the commentary. They're ripping guys, they're putting over guys. Bischoff is still kind of having to sell the pay-per-view. So he's like kind of going into shill mode throughout. So I actually enjoy the commentary. I think they've been good, but they're definitely a little bit scattered in the direction. Bischoff says you can give Starrcade as a Christmas gift to all your friends and family. Then, like you said, Bischoff keeps doing the Japanese accent. DiBiase just loves it. He's all in on this casual racism. We get more shots at Luger. And then into the finish where Bischoff says Chono's not used to these American rules, so we can batter a guy in the ropes, I guess.
Right, of course.
I thought this was fun, though. We're getting a lot of time in the ring tonight, so that was cool. And guys that can work. Jericho hung in. It's a good start for Chono as a gun for the NWO. Shows that he's ruthless, and Jericho's gutsy. Just took the shit kicking until the ref called for the bell. So I went 2 3/4. I thought this was pretty good. And I enjoyed the entire Chono angle and match. I thought it was a good segment. That alone is probably, outside of maybe Bret's promo, like better than anything we saw probably on Raw. And this is probably like the 4th most important thing on the show, maybe,
Yeah, agreed. Did you ever have the busy signal when you tried to call for a pay-per-view?
I think by the time I was ordering myself, we had the box where you just press the button.
Right.
At least I think, because we used to go, I went to my cousins for all of them until like WrestleMania 11, pretty much, other than like Survivor Series for my birthday. And I think even those we ordered a couple days in advance just to have them because we were having like friends over and shit. So by the time where it was just like me every month ordering them, I think we just hit the button.
Gene also called Sonny Ono Jerry Maguire.
I meant to mention that Jerry Maguire reference.
Very 96 reference. I'm pretty sure Jerry Maguire is the first rated R movie I ever watched. Nice little Chad bit of trivia. It's the first one I remember, like actually sitting down and watching. WCW Saturday Night, following an airing of A Christmas Story. So this was back before they did it for 24 hours, I guess. Do you know when that started? Does that feel like a mid 2000s thing?
I mean, this feels like it would have been early for it, but I want to say it wasn't too long after this.
Okay.
I want to say, well, and this is TNT. I think it's TBS is where it starts on. So maybe
Well,
they were also
this
showing
is
it here.
Saturday night
Oh, I'm sorry,
after.
sorry, yeah.
Yep.
I remember it being a thing like in the late '90s. I feel like already.
Okay. I'm sure Sean Kidd will correct us on the exact date. He's got it ingrained in. We didn't get any matches for WCW Saturday Night. We got Hall and Nash in a handicap match. So I mean, they're two big stars. And then Jeff Jarrett, Diamond Dallas Page, who Bischoff mentions, I need to talk to that guy. Which, we got no Page here. This is maybe the first show in a while Page wasn't on, I think. So,
yeah, it's been a while.
No Page. Yeah. Scott Norton, Eddie Guerrero, and M. Wall Street. So that's your lineup.
All right, real quick, I pulled up the stuff on Chris's story.
Here we go.
All right, so the marathon. So they started showing it in 1987. Was the first airing. The film premiered on TBS and local TV stations in December of 87. 89 and 90, TBS showed it on Thanksgiving night. 91 and 92, they started airing it the night after. Kind of became into rotation from there. And then in 1997 is when TNT started. I just lost it. I had it. Okay. This marks the 25th year, one of both channels, the 24-hour marathon, the classic movie. The marathon began on TNT in 1997. TBS joined the marathon in 2004, and alternating between the channels, Warner Media has now been airing it on both channels every year since 2017. So since 97, it looks like was when they started. There's actually a story out there on retronetwork.com. It explains the whole history of the Christmas Story and its syndicated airings, but it increasingly picked up on TBS, TNT, and Turner Classic Movies in 91. 95 was aired over all three channels a combined 6 times from 24th to the 26th. There was 6 viewings or so successful. In 1996, it increased to 8 broadcasts, and then 97 went to the 24-hour marathon.
I remember as a kid, like on Thanksgiving, I don't know which network, but one of the big networks would show Home Alone on Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So I remember that. And then I think like the next night for a few years, they would show Mighty Ducks. So that
I don't remember that one as much. I remember the Home Alone airing. Christmas, Charlie Brown Christmas, a lot of times I feel like was night after maybe too.
Yeah. Like my cousins have an obnoxious amount of lights. Like for a while, they had the most Christmas lights in my hometown. And I know like they would always have a christening on Thanksgiving night.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, that was going on. So we also made homemade sausage balls. Very, very nostalgic. Very nostalgic. Christmas Story.
Not a fan.
It's all right. I have no nostalgia towards it. So it's one of those
I didn't
things.
either. Like, I don't think I really even got into it until, and I'm not even like into it, but I would say over the last 10 years is when I kind of would make sure I kind of watch it through at least once during that marathon.
I don't think I watched it all the way through till maybe the last 15 years. But
yeah, like it wasn't like a big movie for me growing up, or like Home Alone was my big Christmas movie for sure. Like
I go Home Alone, Christmas Vacation, Elf. That could be a good draft. So they show some more clips of Piper. Basically talk about how much of a coward he is. They did actually show him beating up Bischoff this time.
Yep.
But then they do another cut where like Nash is on the outside and they're about to get in the ring. Kind of showing it, this was the one that we on the network you get the extra bonus footage.
Mm-hmm.
So they still cut it off before you can see like the NWO and Piper going at it in the actual ring here. So it was interesting when they cut it. Then we get a big Horsemen interview. Ric Flair has the big Florida
windbreaker,
V-neck windbreaker on. He's ready to go. This is deep in the Danny Warfel era. So big time Florida Gator guy. Arn, Mongo, Deborah are also out. Arn says the kiss of a beautiful woman has poisoned a lot of great minds. Very, very poetic. Sullivan's, yours was the first. Benoit, yours won't be the last. I mean, this was just great. Like, such great lines by Arn for something I don't really care about. And then Arn says he has a solution for Sullivan. He's going to mend his broken heart by giving him a broken body tonight in their match. Flair says Benoit is a good man, and woman, oh woman, they should travel through Germany at the speed of light. So, okay. And then Deborah gets on there, and she has a scathing promo for Nancy and
Yeah,
Chris.
she is not into Nancy at all.
He says, who cares about nasty Nancy running around with little boy Chris? Chris has hit on her a few times, but she goes for real men. She talks about her pageant days, says she beat out 200 other girls from Miss Texas, and says she's looked at the other women in the industry and they would have a dog's chance of winning a beauty pageant. And Eric is on commentary loving that. He's like, I like her. So there you go. Basically, she's the one that cuts a promo like Mongo gets cucked and he don't say nothing hardly.
Well, he tells Arn, Sullivan's coming to take your throat.
Yeah, basically has like a one-liner. They're running out of time, so Gene very quickly wants Flair to comment on Piper versus Hogan. I mean, what happened here? Flair lost his voice in like 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Like it sounded fine at the beginning. Then he starts talking here. He says, Piper will walk the aisle. Hogan will know once and for all what it means to pay the price. And then he says he's going to Kevin Green's house right now for a party.
Panther party.
Yeah, Carolina party.
The Carolina Panther party.
But I mean, his voice is completely gone.
Yeah, he's got nothing.
Eric is like dogging on it on commentary. So it was a little weird. I mean, overall though, I thought this was entertaining. I mean, everybody kind of got their thing in. So
it's entertaining, but the content to me is like, it's like some of my least favorite shit right now going on in WCW. Like Sullivan and Arn and Ben, like I'm just not into it. And maybe it's the future stuff that shades it for me, right? Like just not wanting to see Benoit and woman in this love triangle. Yeah. It's like, it's tough to sit through anyway, but it's also very convoluted. Like they still haven't been super clear with it. All those weird Sullivan back talk and sneaky, words that he sneaks into the promos and the way Arn says shit. Like it's never really been delivered in a straightforward way either. It's all very hush hush. It's just, the whole thing is odd. I mean, Deborah, she plays a great boozy, nose hound, I guess. Like, you picture her out to brunch, just bagging out all the other women, I guess. Like if that's
real housewives.
I don't think she's trying to do it. I think it's how she is. So it's like working, but all of it just seems like, I don't know, like I like my Horsemen breaking guys' hands on the parking lot and beating the shit out of people. Like not this like reality show drama shit. Like we've kind of sunk into with them, dragged into this Benoit, Nancy, Sullivan triangle, and Flair is just like out kind of partying and not really involved in things. I know he's hurt, but like Mongo, like you said, is kind of sitting in the hotel chair in the corner. So the whole thing is just kind of weird, but their energy and gravitas like carries it, so it's still entertaining. It's just like I wish it was like a hotter, better angle we had going on with them.
Yeah, Deborah's pretty much like JJ from the 80s. Like essentially, it's interesting. I mean, the stuff with Benoit and woman is odd, but I thought this was good from a Sullivan Arn perspective.
I'm just done with the feud. I'm just like, I'm done with Sullivan. I'm done with the Horsemen.
Well, you better.
I know we got a lot more to go. Like fuck. It's what everyone like complains about Benoit later, like, oh, glass ceiling, he's being held down. This is where we should have been mad. It's like he's spending a year of his prime like dealing with Kevin Sullivan in a love angle. Like he should have been out there being the one battling Regal and Psychosis in these hot matches and being battling for the mid-card titles and everything. Instead, he's like doing this stupid nonsense.
Man, he's just been gone. They've been on this European.
That's too. He's in Japan. Well, he's in Japan probably, right? Is that?
Yeah.
Or are they just trying to sell the angle? Like I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's a combination, but then we get an utterly bizarre match. David Sammartino comes out, looks so different from how he looks in 1985 at
It's
WrestleMania.
like watching Snooki in the first season of Jersey Shore and the Family Vacation.
I
Now
mean,
that's David Sammartino.
he is like
Between then and now,
ripped and skinny
yeah,
and kind of looks like Stretch Armstrong. Like it was
yeah.
just, I was like, oh,
There's no way if you put these two guys next to each other in a picture, you're not saying it's definitely the same person. That's how dramatically different he looks.
yeah. So Ted, talks about he's a second generation wrestler. Bruno Sammartino's his dad. Eric says, "Don't call Bruno the living legend, or Larry will be back out here getting all upset." Some actually David is interesting because like he's one of these guys like he had to be working, and
Right.
and I know he's in like Abrams, UWF, and some other stuff, but that's like 90 or 91, so it's like from 1992
I
to
don't think
right
he
now in
was.
1996. It's like, what was this guy doing?
Yeah,
Was he working
I don't think
indie
he was
shows?
wrestling. I don't think he was.
Okay. Well, he actually had some pretty good chain wrestling here to start out. The crowd didn't care, but I did. I enjoyed it. Eric lets us know again, if you only buy one pay-per-view this year, it needs to be Starrcade. I mean, it's the last pay-per-view of the year.
Right,
So
that's all we got left. Yeah.
yeah. If you held it in the holster this long, like you got nothing else to do. Really nice hammerlock from David. Dean misses a charge. David gets a pitted tip. And then they basically go straight to the finish where they're exchanging pinfall attempts. A weird ending.
Mm-hmm. I think it was botched.
I think it was too. I think it was just, I think they go with the philosophy of like if the referee counts it, they're just going to run
Yeah.
with it. So that's what happened here where it looked like David's shoulder was up, but Curtis counted the 3, and that was that. So not much of a match. I don't know if we'll see David again, but it was an interesting
So
one-off.
random. It just shows up for this cruiserweight title match of all things.
Yeah, I want to star in a 4th. I mean, I didn't know what to rate this.
So after leaving WWF in '86, he went to the AWA. He was there for a bit. He actually went back to the WWF in '88. Got fired for punching a fan in New York.
Yeah, I think he goes back right when Bruno leaves because they had
like a falling out, right?
Yeah, big time falling
out. In '90, he started working for UWF. He went to All Japan until '90. He was done from '90 to '95. In '95, he started working in New Jersey. Had a couple of matches against our old friend Tommy Cairo, and then he shows up here in WCW. He only has one other match. It's a dark match against Rex King. So that's it for him. So this is the only time we'll see him. 2000, he defeated Jimmy Cicero to win the New York State Wrestling Federation heavyweight title. In 2010, he had a match for the International Wrestling Cartel Night of Legends. He beat Larry Zbyszko on that show. Semi-retired, working as a trainer, personal trainer. He's been doing that since 1996. Still had a strained relationship with his father. So yeah, I think he just got into personal training, which would explain the body change and everything.
Yeah.
So good on him. This was nothing. Like I said, Bischoff just hypes the shit out of Starrcade, some arm work into the weird finish. I went 1 star. The end is odd too. It felt more like an exhibition. It didn't get to cook at all really because of the ending. And then David just like shrugs and leaves.
Yeah.
He goes like that and just walks off. So like, is this a real weird bit? Like a historical note. David Sammartino, Nitro, botched finish, shrugs, and we never see him again. That was it.
David Sammartino is an interesting. I mean, it's almost like David Flair, I guess, on like a smaller level. Like if you wouldn't have had Charlotte, that'd kind of been like Flair's legacy with his kids in the wrestling business too. Like had like one run and then was just done and did something else.
Bad timing for David. Like I just think the whole shit with Bruno and the name in the '80s, and he just was. I mean, he was okay. He was just kind of boring. He might have actually been better off in the NWA, like in the '80s, like with the style he was working.
Yeah, I mean, he was
like
there.
'87.
He was there early. Yeah. He was in Mid Atlantic in the early '80s. I just think. I mean, I just think it's tough. I mean, honestly, like the only thing marketable about him is his last name, and his last name. When you think about one of the most charismatic, personal connection wrestlers of all time, and then you get David. It's so weird. It's always weird when that happens, but I mean, it happens a lot. Going to hour 2, Eric says, he's ready to go back to the back and watch all this unfold in the party. So he says, bring out Heenan, Shivani, and Tenay. They can have the commentary back. So the announcers come out. The changeover happens for hour number 2. Tony lets us know that this is WCW Monday Nitro. They talk about Chono joining the NWO. Tenay lets us know that expands the NWO horizons. Then he turns over to the Brain to talk about Roddy Piper. Heenan gives his usual spiel that, Piper's not scared of Hogan. Hogan's in deep trouble. Basically predicting gloom and doom for Hogan at Starrcade. That leads us into a random match, another debut. Jerry Flynn.
Oh, yes. Master of the martial arts.
Yes, versus Ice Train. Flynn has a very unique heel character where he's basically yelling "shut up" at the cameraman. Like almost
he looks like such a skis with the mullet, the guts hanging out of the robe. I loved it. It was like Will Ferrell in Wedding Crashers when he's on the couch with the robe and the gut.
Yep.
Gut flopped out, just like he looked like just a skis bag that lives down the hall in your apartment building.
Yeah, he looked like somebody. He definitely looked like your local karate master that was a grifter too.
Yeah,
that, said he was like this 3rd-degree black belt. Trained under Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt under Royce Gracie, and then turns out it was like Roy Grace is who gave him his black belt or whatever.
It's so great. I loved it when he walked out. Like, this guy's fucking awesome. Just what a skis bag.
Yeah. So a huge elbow from Ice Train sends Flynn to the outside right away. Gets a splash. He's looking good. He's making a lot of contact. Flynn comes back with clothesline and kick. Then tells the camera to shut up. Nice spinning kick by Flynn. I will say, I've watched I've watched Flynn in Japan, and he has some actually legitimate exciting shoot style matches.
Yeah.
So and it's a nice a lot of variety on this Nitro show. Tony in the middle of this gets handed a memo and says, I gotta read it. It's my obligation.
Why didn't Bischoff just do this?
I don't know.
It's literally 4 minutes after Bischoff left. He handed Tony a memo.
Just finalized. So it's the NWO is presenting a pay-per-view in January in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Tickets go on sale Friday, and he announces the name as sold out. So
maybe they wanted to do an hour 2 after Raw went off the air. Maybe they waited to do a big announcement.
So we get the big reveal of that. Tenay says, "Hey Tony, we understand your job's in jeopardy, so you have to announce it, etc." And then right then, Ice Train catches a kick from Jerry Flynn, gets him in an ankle lock. Very early, early ankle lock.
Predating Shamrock. Yeah.
Yes, and Flynn taps out to that. We get a tap out too. To end this match, another kind of styles clash match, a little odd. It wasn't nothing great, but it was entertaining enough to me for what it was. Only 1.5 stars, but I mean, it was quite an eclectic group of guys that were wrestling tonight.
I went 2.5. I liked it.
Oh boy,
I like Train's power offense. I like Flynn's bombs. It was tight. I don't know. This is my kind of style of the sloppy power match. Mayo's is taken by Flynn's skis look, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was fine. I've actually liked all the matches tonight on Nitro. I think it's been pretty good. Bobby's scared of the NWO. Very scary situation, he says, with the NWO. He's always scared. So anyway, I dug it. I like Flynn.
Yeah, we get my least favorite Bobby trope almost immediately as 6 is in the aisleway.
I'm out of here.
Outsiders. Yeah. See ya for Bobby. Immediately.
I'm turning on Bobby here. I was wondering when it was going to start to happen, and I liked him through most of Nitro 96 and everything, but as the danger has ramped up, he's gotten super annoying.
Yeah.
I actually prefer Larry during this time period.
Oh yeah, I just think Bobby. I mean, he's okay, but the 2 worst things are his see ya immediately. It's we understand you've been a weasel and a coward your whole career, but come on. And then the whole stuff with Sting is just preposterous.
Right,
Like
yeah.
every time, like if Sting has black hair, so he's NWO. I mean, it's just
Right.
so dumb. Like it gets crazy. Six asses Kevin Nash. What's up with the bandana? Kevin says he's looking too sweet. Hall says he knows he's going to watch Hogan take care of Piper. And at Starrcade, they're also putting the belts up the line against the Faces of Fear. Nashton says they don't want to wait till Starrcade and challenges them tonight to a match. So we get kind of an impromptu challenge here.
Mm-hmm.
Hall lets us know that those savages have to the end of the night. He wants an answer, which we never hear an answer from them. They just say when it comes back.
Well, Nash said they're giving each other a bath. So
right. So there you go.
They said they're gonna fire up Picola, baby.
I mean, I don't know if you had anything to add to that. It was
usual NWO nonsense. I enjoyed
it. We get our shirt shield
for
the NWO.
I have a shirt.
Little added caveat. Now you can get the hat.
For $15.
Yes, so there we go. Sting music.
I'm surprised it took them this long to make the hat. Honestly.
I was actually looking if there was a custom, NWO hat out there right now because I could rock the hat. I could rock an NWO hat. That sounded like a pretty cool addition to Big Chad's wardrobe. A Sting video airs. I thought this is cool. It's eerie. It's kind of dark and atmospheric. It has sort of a shot of him just sort of up in the rafters, like staring. But then off to the side, it shows clips of him, attacking Rick Steiner and him and Luger and kind of just giving us what's been going on the past few months with him.
Yep.
At the end of it, though, Bobby proclaims he's NWO, of course. So there you go. Next match, another interesting one.
Yeah.
Bobby Eaton versus Rey Mysterio. Bobby takes over with his left hand. He gives Ray a backbreaker. Someone randomly in the crowd goes, "Midnight Express, yeah!" Like, all right,
Die Hard.
Yeah, I think it may have been Sheriff Pete. So he was excited. They announced Liger versus Ray at Starrcade, which, if you're a hardcore fan around this time, dream match.
Absolute big time.
Action spills the outside. Big tope by Ray that sends Eaton into the guardrail. That gets the crowd excited. He tries to send Eaton in kind of like a Rana, but he gets caught up a little bit in the ropes. Eaton fires back, goes for a suplex. Spinning kick from Ray stops that. He hits the springboard drop kick and a moonsault using the ropes as an assist. Eaton works over a little bit on offense, hits his big knee from the top, but then eventually Ray's able to hit the Rana to end it. I mean, this is 1996 Bobby Eaton, so it would have been nice to have 1987 Bobby Eaton versus Rey Mysterio. We don't have that now. It was what it was. I mean, I went 2 1/4. That was kind of like a respectable. It wasn't like I wasn't not entertained,
right?
But it's also one of those matches where it was a little sad for me because it's like, oh, these are 2 of my top 100 wrestlers of all time, and actually 2 of my top 50. And it's just one so past his prime, and one's just starting out into his prime that it's like they're really like 2 passing trains in the night that are meeting. So,
yeah, it was okay. A lot of offense for Eaton. Ray's speed is so good. Big improvement on the show when you get these types of matches every week. Even though this wasn't what you would hope, maybe this is so much better than some of the other crap dug in on Wall Street and stuff like that we've suffered through in the past. Couple of big spots around the grinding. 2.5 stars for me. Tony gets into the Benoit stuff too. He says he left Arn behind to fight his battles. So like they're really hyping that up too throughout this. So yeah, pretty whatever. Basic. Oh, they also say Jimmy Hart accepted the challenge officially, so we will get outside of Face the Fear today. Yeah, Jimmy.
Jimmy Tony on says, behalf of him. Okay.
Yes, Tony says Jimmy has accepted the challenge. So.
There we go.
They're still giving each other the bath. So
all right. Yeah. Lee Marshall's in Macon. Did you have notes on his road report?
He says he's talked to a lot of fans coming in from Atlanta for the last Nitro before Christmas. He says the rare white Gordonian guzzling weasel will be there as well. And Bobby tells him to stay off the moonshine. So there you go.
A lot of bad
we're
little
making.
jokes.
Yep.
So,
and that'll be our go home, obviously, too, for Starcade. So,
right.
but, yeah.
Then we get, I don't know. This was uncomfortable. This was Benoit in one video. We talked about it. They're drinking wine. The footage looks foreign. I don't know how else to say it. It looks like it was from a foreign country. Benoit asks about the gondola ride. They ask where they're going next. He speaks some French, and the woman's like, "Oh, you're taking me to Paris." And a woman says she might be coming home, but she might not be. She's not cold anymore. And she might have found a home with Benoit. Benoit basically dresses down Sullivan as much as he can. He says, "What is it like being alone and being a loser, losing the most important thing you've ever had? It sure feels great gaining it." I mean, we talked about it. Like, it's just, I don't know. Like, it's tough. Like, this is one of the, for me, this is some of the toughest stuff in wrestling. Like, as tasteless as wrestling can be, like, this is some of the toughest stuff to watch.
Yeah. I think it doesn't get talked about enough for being like, I don't know what the Observer Awards were look at this point for like most disgusting promotional tactic or whatever, but like this had to be up there. I mean, it's just mean spirited. Like, who's the face? Like it's also muddy.
Yeah.
It's an ECW vibe, but even it feels even mean for ECW. Like, I don't know if they were even doing this. I know, like, we're around the time with Raven and Lori Fullington and Tyler, I guess. So yes, but this feels even more real, and maybe it's because we know what comes from it. Like, looking back, it's even more like dark. Benoit says Kevin doesn't life suck, and the stuff about walking on the late lonely night, lonely walks on the beach in an empty house and all this stuff. Like, I don't know.
Like, I mean, Sullivan's booking this,
right?
And even like beyond what ends up happening with Benoit and Nancy at the end, it's like, if you just look at this moment in time, like, speaking personally from someone that just went through a divorce, like, I can think of like what Sullivan's headspace was at that point, where he, was probably trying. I mean, from all accounts, it's like he was trying to hang on, or whatever, and he could see that was going away. Like, it's a really, like, it gives you really bad vibes. Like, it's the whole thing's just off and tough to watch. And then you pile on what ends up happening, and it's even worse.
Right.
So
It's like, in retrospect, it's brutal. In real time, it's confusing. And we've dealt a lot of TV time to this. Yeah, I'm just haven't been a fan at all. And again, maybe knowing what happens later clouds it even more, but I don't think it's even entertaining. I mean, the shitty stuff that happens in the future for stuff that's entertaining in the past, and we call it out. But this is just not that great.
I think on 3 levels it doesn't work. Like, if you're just like a wrestling person that has no knowledge of what's going on behind the scenes at this time, it's not great because you don't really know who's a heel or face. It's just two guys like fighting, and it's mean spirited and weird. If you do know what's happening, like if you're an observer reader around this time, it's tough because, again, like, Sullivan's booking this, but it's like, what's his headspace and like what's his object? Like, you're when that stuff's going on, you're in a world that's, I mean, it's what Benoit talks about. Like, it's a very dark, like, mental capacity, I'm sure, around this time. And then what's happening, what happened 26, in forward, and it's even worse. So it's all bad, all bad. I mean, I'm actually hoping eventually they'll just get to like in ring. Like, I mean, the in ring stuff I can handle to a degree. It's really this stuff where you're getting these promos and all this. Like, this is the worst of the worst. These like vignettes. So there we go. Tony lets us know we didn't need to see that. That leads to Sullivan versus Arn. Sullivan stumps out saying, "Shivani, I said no tape," in his Boston accent. And then they have actually, I thought, a pretty nasty fight. So they fight in the entrance. This one goes right out of control. Sullivan throws a chair right at Arn's head. Arn gets the chair but misses it and hits the post. Some nasty punches from Sullivan in the corner. They go into the crowd. Arn back inside the ring. They're just pounding away. Kevin rakes the eyes of Arn, and Arn ends up DDTing Mark Curtis while he's blinded. Sullivan gets in the double stomp, the tree of woe. Arn hits Kevin in the nuts when he charges in on the tree of woe. That was a cool looking spot. They popped the crowd. Arn's looking for a DDT, but Hugh Morris comes in. Hugh Morris ends up getting the DDT. The crowd's electric for that. Conan's up on the apron. He gets punched down. Jimmy Hart gets sent into the ring. So a lot of chaos here. Meanwhile, Conan recovers, gives Kevin Sullivan the chair. He whacks Arn with it and gets the pin. A quick note, Bubba is on the outside for this, but doesn't get physical at all. So I thought that was a nice touch. Mongo comes out with the Halliburton after all this.
Yeah, baby.
I don't know what he was doing. I guess consoling Deborah over Nasty Nancy. I mean, he was way slow.
Right.
Like when Hugh Morris is outrunning you, like you know, let's step it up. But as a match itself, shockingly entertaining to me. Like it was frantic. Very spirited between these two. Like just as a standalone match, I enjoyed it. As a brawl, it was very garbagey and enjoyable to me. So I went 3 stars for the match, but I kind of compartmentalized it from the feud as a whole.
The wooden chair shot at the end was really nasty. I mean, Bubba really crushed. Sullivan really crushed him with it. Wild scene. I thought it was great. It was a crazy, realistic, hate-fueled fight. Some intense spots. The finish worked. If we just had a better story around it, it could have really amped it up even more. But they did it in spite of it, and Arn's not going to be happy with the way this went out for sure. He takes a loss and a hard chair shot on behalf of Benoit. At some point, Benoit's going to have to come here and defend himself and make up for all this shit. But I went 2 3/4. Again, it was a fun chaos. And if we only just had a better story, I'd be more into Sullivan and Arn just being 2 old bar brawlers beating the shit out of each other. But give me like a real compelling reason for it instead of what we got going on. Or give us a reason why, like, again, you're dancing around weird shit that you're not really saying. Like, did Sullivan abuse woman? She's running to Benoit, but Benoit and woman are really rubbing it in a nasty way. And it's like, and then Deborah's shitting on Nancy and Benoit. So it's like, who's the face? Like, it's just, there's no one to like in the story. It's like Breaking Bad. It's like, there's like no faces in any of this. You know what I mean? It's like, everyone's just a piece of shit. Like, who am I supposed to get behind?
You comparing this to Breaking Bad may be worse than Vince comparing the Karate Fighters to Billie Jean King.
Where's my Jimmy McGill in this story? I want someone to root for. All a bunch of pricks.
So then the next 3 segments are pretty rapid fire. This was an interesting, I thought, setup. We've talked about when they kind of broke stride on their structure. I thought this was one of them where they kind of went away from it because really we have 3 segments here to end the show. Where there's like 1 minute of combined in-ring action. So Rick comes out for his match with Sting. Sting's shown on the catwalk. Scott is really starting to transition into Big Papa Pump. He's wearing the black leather. He's, a hothead. It's starting to come for sure. We want Sting chants ring out from the crowd. He comes down from the crowd. They take forever to get a close-up shot for him. And they show it, and then they cut away, and then when they show back, Bobby mentions he doesn't have a bat.
Right.
Then they cut away. They show another Sting jumping the guardrail, and this Sting does have a bat. Tony's like, did he get that from a fan? I'm like, well, who's letting these fans just bring in bats? But anyway, so it's pretty clear it's a fake Sting, right? And then the fake Sting gets into the ring. Tony squeals out, there are 2 Stings. So NWO Sting opens the ropes for the other Sting. Bobby, I thought, was pretty dumb here initially, where he says, like, well, who is who? It's like, all right.
Well, Tony says, I can tell the real Sting because he's acting darker.
Yeah, that was dumb too. I mean, they started out good. They were like, I think it's the one on the left. It was like, yes, please just say that. But yeah, he's acting more dark was strange. So the bat gets pointed at real Sting from fake Sting, real Sting. Then like does basically a magic trick. Like, I didn't know he had a bat in his jacket, but he rolls the bat down from his jacket, pulls that out, points it at the fake Sting, real Sting, Pat's fake Sting, and both turn around as he throws the bats to the Steiners. So now the Steiners have the bats, and both Stings are turned around with their backs to them. Real Sting then gives fake Sting a Scorpion Death Drop. He catches the bat from Rick Steiner and walks away. So, I mean, this seemed a little convoluted, right? Just describing. But in watching it, it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I do think the moment of him dropping him with the Scorpion Death Drop was a really cool moment. The crowd went nuts. Him catching the bat from Rick was cool. And then the real Sting walks away. So, overall, pretty convoluted, but I thought it was successful.
Yeah, I thought it was good because it's, the first real message again to the NWO from Sting. But there's still enough there where like the NWO plays these mind games. They're known to sacrifice fake Sting. So like, could it still be a setup and they're just sacrificing fake Sting to bait in WCW? So you still have to wonder that. He's trying to earn the Steiners' trust. This has been ongoing for weeks now with Sting and the Steiners. So that was a good payoff to that. And it was cool having the two Stings together again, kind of paying off what happened at Fall Brawl. So, yeah, I thought it was a really good segment.
Then we got a Hogan interview.
And a Christmas Starcade ad.
Oh, yeah, right. I think Bobby's already said it, but Bischoff mentioned it too. And Bobby at one point was like, just surprise the kids at Christmas for Starcade. I'm like, when did this become a big thing that like for Christmas you get Starcade? So they were really pushing that. So a Hogan interview, he's out with his crew that we talked about. So it's the Giant, Vincent, Ted, and Elizabeth. Hogan calls out Piper. Tony says he knows that Piper isn't there. And then Hogan talks about his career starting in Pensacola. Then he transitioned to Flair and says he has nothing left with that bad shoulder and the bad hip of Piper. He could beat both of them at the same time. And as he was talking about this, I may have gotten worked. Because I was thinking, I was like, wow, he's like back to scattered-brained Hogan, right? But then Tony mentions that Piper has flipped, or that Hogan has flipped. Like Hogan's flipped out. And I think like this was, I think this was like a smart, purposeful effort on Hogan's part to seem sporadic, paranoid,
delusional.
Delusional. Like
he's trying to convince himself and everyone that he's the real legend, that Piper's not in his head, he's in control. Yeah,
right. So this was almost like a big brained promo in many ways that I think carried a lot of subtlety you wouldn't necessarily expect from Hogan. And I thought it was very successful because then Ted taps him on the shoulder, whispers something into his ear. Hogan says, boy, am I surprised. Piper isn't here. When he came out, he ran out of the back door and he stomps off. Hogan, by the way, is wearing a really sweet NWO tank top. I don't think we ever see this one again. Has like a skull on the back, has like barbed wire lettering in a box around NWO. Really cool. But this was a promo in the beginning. I was like, man, this isn't a great promo to have 2 weeks out from Starrcade. And by the end, I actually loved it. Like, I thought it was some of the best, like most nuanced work I've seen from Hogan maybe ever. Like even like in his peak as a face, like when you're still like very pro Hogan, it's not exactly the most nuanced character in the world. So I thought this was very successful in getting across that Hogan is legitimately scared of Piper.
Yeah, without saying it. It's just very subtle. Yeah.
And
it was good.
First time in a while he's been like that.
He had a great line too where he goes, the fans in Picola remember Hogan starting and beating up Andre and then apologizes to DiBiase for beating up Andre. I thought that was a cool little callback and a nice touch. That was funny. Hogan shits on Flair. He says, you used to have Liz and Woman and the belt, and now you got nothing, just a bad shoulder and with Piper's bad hip. He'll beat you both at the same time. He wants Piper, and then he makes Liz kiss his cheek. He wants to show up that has-been Savage who's sitting in a wheelchair. Just Hogan is fully in his bag, just shooting on everyone throughout this. And then, into the finish. Bobby calls him Thunder Lips at the end as well, which is funny. So it was a good heater promo. It's just Hogan get his delusions over. It was maybe a little long, but I thought it was effective as well. I thought they did a good job showing that this dude is trying to show he's in control, but he's really spiraling because Piper's in his head, even though he's claiming it's the other way around.
Right. Leads us into our main event. Outsiders come out. Lots of kids wearing NWO shirts in the crowd. Big brawl to start when the Faces of Fear come out. Mean gets tripped up by Nash. We get a clothesline from Hall. Barbarian hits the big boot on Hall. Then he catches one from Nash. And then the match just breaks down. So really like a minute of action. I didn't even rank it. I mean, it was what it was. And then we get our big closing ankle. So Big Bubba runs in. He hits Ming, and he joins the NWO. And that starts a huge chain effect where Sullivan comes out, Bubba wallops him, Conan gets a flurry in on Bubba, but he gets caught up in the numbers game along with Hugh Morris. The Giant is the next person to come out for the NWO. I thought that was a cool callback to his time in with the Dungeon. So I liked it. He was kind of the first one out there from the reserves. And then Bagwell, Wall Street, Vince, and Six are out. Team WCW comes out, which included Regal, Psychosis, Chavo Guerrero. Chono comes out, and essentially what we have is like a battle royal. That's what it looks like. Like everybody's just in the ring fighting each other. Tony says the battle lines have been drawn, and then Ice Train and Scott Norton kind of come out, and they're at the ringside area, and Norton all of a sudden just attacks Ice Train. So it's a little bit, vague at the beginning. Like I think even Bobby says like everybody's hitting each other or something like that. But then when Norton gets in the ring, he's not touching the NWO guys. So he's also clearly now NWO as well. A big choke slam from Chavo to Chavo from the Giant in the middle of the ring.
Yeah, look great.
A funny moment that I noticed, David Sammartino's out there. And I think he forgot like what was supposed to be happening because he's punching away at Mongo, which is not what he was not supposed to be doing that. I don't think.
He was trying to force his way to the NWO, man. He's like, well, if I just act this way, man, they'll give me the shirt.
It was like one of those old like Royal Rumble moments where it's just like pair up with somebody. He picked Mongo. So Sting's come out. Sting is coming out. Great call from Tony when that happens. Tony says, yeah, this is Sting, all right. Sting gets grabbed by Arn when he enters the ring, and then Sting decks Arn. Mongo comes in to defend Arn. Sting fights him, and all the other fighting just ceases in the ring. So now they're watching Sting beat up Mongo. Ray jumps on the back of Sting. He kind of throws him off, and then Sting walks away. We're out of time. Still bringing, that still muddles the water, a little bit on what side is Sting.
It offsets what we saw earlier.
Right. So another big closing angle. I thought some of the execution here, some bad punches, even like when Norton turns on Ice Train, it didn't look great.
Right.
And we talked about it like when does the NWO become diluted? And now we've seen like this is a show where they add 3 guys. So now they have, I don't know, what, 12, 13 members probably at this point, if you include like NWO Sting and Nick Patrick. So they have a posse now. But as this type of closing angle, I again thought this was successful. I thought this created a lot of intrigue, and I thought I don't necessarily know if I'd classify this as a home run like some of the closing stuff we've seen and some of the stuff with NWO, but I still thought this was very solid and capped off a very good show.
Yeah, it was really good. I thought it was a great closing scene. I like the NWO, even though the expansion seems like it could water it down, them having these low-level foot soldiers works well because now it doesn't have to be Hall and Nash and Hogan. You want those guys in these segments to feel big, but it doesn't have to be them fighting off WCW. You've got some bums that they can feed feed to take the beating with this guy.
Yeah.
Not that they're all going to be presented that way, but you kind of have that first wave they can send out now to do the fighting for them. So I think that helps a lot as this escalates further. You add more mystery to Sting. WCW was willing to fight together, right? Because Ray kind of stuck up for the Horsemen. And I thought the Sting part was great. It felt like Batman, like in the dark, like if you picture like dark and rainy or whatever, and he's fighting guys off who don't realize he's on their side. Ray jumps on his back, he throws them. Like it felt very much like that. Like Batman coming to save these guys. They think he's a bad dude and they're trying to fight him off. And so he's misunderstood, right? That's what it felt like to me. And I thought it was really well done. So yeah, this is a great segment. The good tease for Faces of Fear Outsiders sets up, Starcade. We're going to see these guys go at it there. So this just led to the brawl. So yeah, I thought it was another hot closing segment, and I really like this Nitro a lot. I thought it was a really fun episode, and it's one that really delivered. And it was a fun episode without a major match and without while these angles are good, there was no major all-time angle, no major all-time match. It might have been one of the best all-in, like top to bottom, well-balanced, very good episodes of Nitro we've had, where you didn't need something to carry. Oh, this was great because of this segment or this match. It's like everything just hit. All the matches were very good. There was a couple stinkers, but they're short. There was nothing that was like dragging it down. Everything hit. The commentary with Bischoff and DiBiase was really good. So yeah, I thought everything just worked really well. All right, so let's get to our awards. My match of the night was Psychosis and Regal. I'm guessing that was yours as well.
Yep.
Best moment, I went with the final brawl.
Yeah, I actually went with Sting dropping the fake Sting.
Yeah, they were both really good. I just like the Batman aspect of Sting at the end.
I didn't make the Batman comparison, but that's a cool comparison.
Sting was my MVP.
Yep, me too.
Great night. Commentary lines we kind of hit on as we went. We had some shots fired. We talked about Bischoff says Vince was shocked when Luger signed and then shits on In Your House.
Yeah.
I love this episode. I went 8 out of 10. I think it was a kind of a hidden gem of an episode. It's not one you think of when you think of the great Nitros of this era, but I was into it. It was hot. The crowd was good. Everything clicked. They didn't have any bad matches on paper. It was a really fun watch.
Yeah, I'm in between 7.5 and an 8. I think I'm on lean 8. Because it really was. It was a very watchable episode. And like I said, I think I've got to get away from thinking like if it's a great episode, it has to have a home run segment, which I don't think we had.
No.
But like everything was really good. Like,
and it forwarded stories. Like part of me thinks like, well, I'm curious how next week's Nitro is, because this could have been a very good go home all in if we just had maybe like a Piper segment. If you add that in, the only person I hear is Luger and Giant, really. I guess the Giant was there, but otherwise, like, we had everything we pretty much need to give a hard sell to Starcade. So we'll see how next week goes. But it feels like this could have been it if we had Piper on the premises.
No Jarrett.
Yeah, no Jarrett either, who we've seen a ton. Paige and Jarrett are two guys we've seen a ton of that weren't here. So all right. So we had debuts. We had our buddy Davey Sammartino, Jerry Flynn. Who else we got?
Chono.
Oh no. Anyone else?
I think that's it.
Yeah. Road Report is making no dropped angles. The Japanese music we had for Chono and Ono. I'm gonna mark that down. All right, so that's Nitro. Let's get to our combo awards for the night. So best show clearly was Nitro, and it's a tough night for Raw because Raw is pretty good for us on this night. It's just that Nitro was just dramatically better. Psychosis Regal match of the night.
Yep.
What do you want to go with best segment?
Well, you can go with the closing on Nitro. I think that's fine.
Better commentary was Nitro for sure.
Yeah.
Star of the night was Sting.
Yep.
Nitro. So clean sweep this week for WCW.
Yeah, the ratings, I think like, what was it? I had to pull it up. So Raw strangely Raw's had the same rating 3 weeks in a row. They've been 2.3, 2.3, and they're 2.3.
Well, Nitro audience, I guess.
And Nitro's only dropped 0.1 each of the 3 weeks. So 12-2, they were 3.4, 12-9, 3.3, and 12-16 to 3.2. So interesting. I mean, I think stuff's really settling in. Like that's what I'm taking from this. But we're entering a weird time where, the holidays,
Right.
Which I don't think but next week I think they still aired at the same time. I'll double check before we record. But looking at the Raw rating, I want to double check that because stuff may have. I don't know if it's the holidays or what happened, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's 2 nights before Christmas. Kind of a throwaway Raw. 2 weeks after our pay-per-view. We're still a month from the Rumble.
Yeah.
I could see maybe piecing out on that and go home for Starrcade. Maybe like if you're going to watch anything on that night, that's the one.
If it aired at 7:57, there was definitely a lot of the audience that pieced out on the next Raw.
Yeah. So, all right. So that'll do it. We'll be back. We got to look over our schedule again. We got, some stuff going on, likely probably a month out, and hopefully then back on schedule from there. But our next show will be the December 23rd Raw Nitro. That'll be our final before Starrcade. Before you know it, 96 will be in the books. Be sure to check out everything we have here at the North-South Connection. I want to give a shout out to Ryan Gray, who did amazing work with all the WrestleMania match previews. I mean, by the time you're watching this, WrestleMania is done. But he did some really cool work leading up to Mania this year. And hopefully you guys all checked it out. It was every night dropping a match preview with a different member of the North-South Connection staff. And I'll also give a shout out to Viewer's Choice, which you can find over at northsouthconnection.com. Dropped right after WrestleMania ended. And Marcus and Tim do an awesome job every time recapping all of that. So subscribe, like we mentioned, to YouTube. Subscribe to all of our podcast feeds. We appreciate all the support and continue to thank you for that. Spread the word. Napalm has been dropped. Smell it. We're out.